Hi, welcome to the ice cream pivot table case. In this video, I'm going to go over how to complete this case and some things you should be doing. Okay, so when you open up the case, the first thing you should do is go to the memo and read over the instructions of the memo. And in the memo, it's saying here, first they want me to sort the data, create a series of pivot tables, create an executive summary, answers the following questions, and create a recommendation. Okay, so I already created the executive summary and dashboard. So the executive summary is what we do as sort of summarizing the case specifics. So we have an introduction, a financial analysis, and a recommendation. And then we have a dashboard area for charts and graphs. And then we have the data. So the first thing that we should do with the data, of course, is start to format the data a little bit. So the first thing is you want to freeze the top row. So you want to freeze the top row under view, so that way no matter where line I am on the case, I could see that top row. I want to make sure everything is formatted properly. So here it looks like, so for the margin, I'm going to go to the home page. I'm going to open it up just to be percentage here. I'm going to open this up so it's just 3 digits, and I'm going to copy that format by hitting the paste and paste it over here as margin over here. Oh, these are the, all right. So I'm going to just make this flavor a little bit smaller so I have more room on the page. Okay, I'm just going to shrink it a little bit so I have more, see all the data on the page. Just going to shrink these columns a little bit. Okay, so now, then I'm going to run on the titles. I'm going to go review, and I'm just going to run a spell check. Everything's spelled correctly, good. And now I'm going to set the print ranges. So I'm going to page layout, and I'm going to highlight the area. Now I can hit Control or Command A, depending if you have Mac or PC, and this will highlight the entire area. So there's 2,000. If I hit, I can use the quick keys end and arrow up to get to the top of the range. So there's 2,000 lines of data. So these quick keys, by hitting the end key and up or Alt A, helps me to quickly highlight and capture all of the data. Okay, now I'm going to go to print area. I'm going to say set print area, and go to page setup. And I'm going to try this in lands, because let me just hit cancel. So if I do the page, let's do the page setup. I think I'll do landscape. I'm just going to retract the margins a little bit. I'm going to set up a header. It's revenue data. I'll just say ice cream pivot case. Page 1 at the top, and at the footer, I'll just put confidential, today's date, and the page number as well. And then the sheet, it's the pretty rows to repeat at the top is I want to repeat this row 1 at the top. Okay. So I'm going to hit OK. So I set up the print area. Now I want to test the print area. So I'm going to hit Control P, and this will show me what the pages look like. So if I scroll down, I'll see that I have one column hanging out on the page here, which that's a waste. So what I could do, I'm going to go cancel this. I'm going to go back into page setup, and I'm going to reduce it to 90% of the size, adjust it to 90%. So now when I do the print preview, it's only 58 pages out of 138 pages. So now it's well set up. Okay, so I set the print range. Cancel. Okay, so print ranges are the print area and the page setup are all set up so that way if someone does print it, it'll only print out 58 pages, not 5,000 if you don't set the print ranges up properly. And I'm going to go back to the top of the file and leave it in cell A1. And the currency, it's set as currency, which is what we want. So currency up here, we don't want it to be set as number or counting or percent. We want it to be in currency. And we don't want to show any change because it's a waste of space. Okay, so we're all good here. So let's go back to the memo. First thing it wants us to do is do a multi-sort. So when you sort by year, store, month. Okay, so again, I'm going to hit Control A to grab the whole sheet. And I'm going to do data sort. And let's see, I already forgot what the year, store, month. Year, store, month. Okay. Year, store, and I'm going to add another level. You know what? So there is no month anymore. That was the there is no month here. So I'm going to switch this to brand. Year, store, brand. So let me go back to the data here. Control A to select all the data, sort, year, store, and then I'm going to hit this plus key to add brand. I'm going to hit OK. So now you see that it's sorted by, let's see, let me try that again. Year, store, brand. Smallest to largest, okay. Okay, so it's sorted by year first, then the store alphabetically, then the brand alphabetically. The brand here, Baskin-Robbins alphabetically. Okay, so that's just the sorting instructions. So let's go back to the memo. Using the data, provided on the revenue spreadsheet, create a pivot tables for the following questions. Okay, so I'm going to delete month here no longer exists. So I'm going to delete that. By the time you see the spreadsheet, you'll get the most updated spreadsheet. So I'm just making corrections as I go here. So let's create a pivot table for these 6 sets of instructions. Okay. So revenue, cost, profits, and units by brand. Okay. So for the first, number 1, they want me to create a total for revenue, cost, profits, and units for each. So first one is going to be brand, is going to be how we want this to be subtotaled. All right, so let's go to the revenue data. I'm going to highlight all the data, Control A. So, and I'm going to go to Insert Pivot Table. And I'm going to use the default settings. I do want a new worksheet, and I do want to select that range. So I'm going to hit OK. And now it's going to create a new worksheet here. So I'm going to, it just says sheet 1. I'm going to relabel this pivot tables. Okay. So now we're going to I'm going to select brand first and put it over to the rows. So here are the brands. There's 4 brands. And let me make this a little bigger so you can see. Okay, so I click in here, this fields table will pop up. Now I want to total by revenue, cost, profits, and units. Revenue, costs, gross profits, and units. Okay. And they already make sure it says sum, so these are the totals. So now I'm gonna, these are in dollars, so I'm gonna change this to currency. Take away the change. And this one I'm just gonna format in units, take away the fractionals. Okay, so now we have by brand. Now instead of going and creating another pivot table, so I don't need to go and highlight the data and create another pivot table, I'm just gonna highlight this group here. I'm going to hit Control Copy, and I'm just going to paste it down here. So up here, I'm going to say brand. And let's go back to the memo. So we're going to do this again for store, group, year, and flavor. So I need to have 4 more pivot tables. So I'm going to actually go ahead, copy this one. Oops. Okay, I must have hit cut. So let me go back up here. Control copy. I'm going to skip 2 rows and paste. So let's skip 2 rows, paste. Okay. And I'm going to relabel these. The first one was brand. So let's just make that, I'll put a highlight on that. I'm going to center it, put a strong dark box around it, and make that bold. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it. So I don't have to redo all that formatting again for each of these different pivot tables. So now I'm going to retitle this store, group, year, flavor. All right, so now we had this pivot table currently set up. So if I go click in here, this is a second pivot table. So I created this pivot table. When I copied it, it created a second pivot table. So now here, I could change from brand. I can unclick brand, and I can put in store. Okay. And I see a problem here that it I'm gonna insert a little row here. So it ate up the next one's going to be group. So I'm just give it a little space here because this overrode some of that copy. So here, the next one is going to be group. So I'll unselect brand and I'll select group. And I'm going to move it over here because it so there's only 2 groups, high end, low end. So I can delete these rows. And then the next one is going to be year. There's a lot of years. So let me just move flavor. Let me just put flavor over here temporarily. Okay, go back here. So we want to do years. So I'm going to do year. I'm going to move the year here. And I'm going to uncheck brand. And now I have the years. And I temporarily move. So I move flavor over here temporarily. I'm going to move it back over here. And then unselect brand, and then I'm going to look to select flavor. And again, it popped it over in values. I wanted to move this to rows. Okay, so now you see there's a lot of flavors. So, okay, so let me close the fields list here. So we have our sum of the costs, profits, and units of the revenue, cost, profits, and units by year, by brand, by store, by, I gotta label this one. This one was by group, by year, and then by flavor. So you can see by flavor, there's a lot of flavors here. Okay. Let's go back to memo. So we completed the sort, we completed the pivot tables. So now they want me to complete an executive summary, and on the executive summary I should answer these following questions. Which year has the highest revenues? Which year has the highest profit? So these month questions, we don't need month anymore. Which brand has the highest revenue? Which store has the highest revenue? Flavor, highest revenue. Brand, highest profit. Store, flavor, profits. Okay, so all these questions here, which we're going to put in the executive summary under the financial analysis, can be answered from our pivot tables. But now also we have this dashboard on our financial analysis. So let's use the pivot tables to make some charts. So if I click here, in this pivot table, I go to pivot table analyze, I can do pivot chart. So I'll click on this and it makes a really nice chart. So I'm gonna take this chart and temporarily, let me just move it to the side here. And then I'm going to highlight the chart, copy it, and then add it to my dashboard. So I'll put that chart in there. So let's go back to the pivot table. Now I could do the same thing with stores. Pivot table analyze, pivot chart. So I have stores, and if I wanted to change this chart, if I want to have the same chart every time, which is just defaults to these bar area, I can go to, let's see, design, and they'll have these quick charts up here I can sort through. So maybe I want to have it change into a color, but maybe I want to change the layout, make chart element, data labels, let's see. I could put a title above the chart, and this could be, I might want to put this store data. So now I have a little bit more stylized chart. Put that over here. And then, this chart too, if I wanted to, let's move this over. So this is the previous chart, and this is just kind of looking so plain now. So I could go into, I could change it here, and let me just move this chart. So now I put in this chart, I put in the numbers along with on the bars. So I can also change the title here, and this is brand data. Okay, so now we have two charts. I'm going to leave them over there. Let's move back over here. So now we have group. So let's do another design. Pivot chart. And we're going to go into design on the pivot chart, and maybe we want to change the chart type. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make it a pie chart. So just to show sum of revenue, and I'm going to change the title here by group. So a little pie chart by group. So let's put that over here. Now we have year. So let's go into, again, pivot table analyze, pivot chart. And that, I don't like that chart so much. So maybe I'm going to go to design and I'm going to change the pie chart to line. So I'll do a line chart like that. And I'm going to pull the chart to expand it a little bit. It might be better as a bigger chart. Then maybe I will do a now that doesn't look better, it looks worse. Okay, we'll keep it like that. And then we'll go to the quick design here, and maybe we'll make it back into this style. Add chart element. We want a chart title above, and we'll say year data. So now we'll put that down there. So now we have brand. Okay, so brand here. Again, let's go to pivot table analyze, pivot chart, and that terrible chart. So we're going to go into design and we're going to say change pivot type, and move this over so you can see this. I'm going to change it to a tree map. Okay, so I can't see. You know what? I'm going to let me delete this chart. I'm going to just highlight revenue and labels and go to pivot chart. And okay, so this, I just want revenue and labels. I can't, it wants to give me everything here. So I'm going to delete this chart. Okay, so because it's a pivot chart, it's going to want to work with the big pivot table, but there's too much data there for me. So I'm going to, one thing I can do is I can highlight this information. I don't want the total, I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go over here next to it, maybe a little lower here. And I'm going to paste special, and I just want to paste the values in number formats. I don't want to create another pivot table. And I'm going to take flavors, put that down here, and I'm just going to call this revenue. Delete that. So now I'm going to highlight these two columns, and I'm going to go to, this is altered, so I don't need to create a pivot table. I can bring the data out of the pivot table, just put in a regular 2-column data, and then I can go to insert, and I can insert a chart. So I want to insert, I can kind of scroll through the different charts here, and I want a tree map specifically. So now I've created a tree map of the flavors, but I don't want this title. These titles are necessary. So I'm going to delete that and retitle it. Flavors tree map, and I'm going to make it even bigger so you get more of the names in there. Okay. So those are going to be, so now I'm going to transfer these charts, all these charts, I'm going to transfer them to the dashboard. All right, so I'm going to take this first one. I'm just going to highlight it, Control Copy, go to the dashboard. Let me delete the one that's there and see if, okay, so I'm going to put that in the dashboard. Now I'm going to take the store data, Control Copy, put that in the dashboard. The group map, copy, put that in the dashboard. have the year data. Store data. Oh, I have the store data already. And take the tree map. And I'm going to say flavors. These for revenue. So I'm going to take the tree map, put this in the dashboard. Okay, so now I have 5 charts. It's best to always have at least 6. So I'm going to go back to the table here, and I'm going to create another chart, but it's just going to be, again, I'm going to highlight flavor, but this time I want to bring in the profits. So I'm going to highlight this profit column. Well, first let me go over here. I need to move this flavor chart over. Okay. So I want to highlight the profit. Copy. And let me put the profit in there. Okay, so now let me call this profit. So I can actually highlight this first column, and then I can, once I have it highlighted, I can hit Command Shift. Let me go back up here. Command Shift. Nope. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to select the first column. Then if I hit, I'm using a Mac, so I'm going to hit what's called the Command button to highlight a second column that's not adjacent to the first column. So I can create a new chart with, and I can do this for multiple rows anywhere I want, so I can create a new chart. It's going to create another tree map. And now this tree map is going to be flavors by profits. Your map. Okay. And it's going to look a lot like the other chart. So let me copy this. Put this on the dashboard. Okay. All right. So now I have these charts in the dashboard, but it looks kind of ugly the way I laid them out. But I'm going to resize them. So let me push this over here. And maybe one thing I can do is I can actually highlight hitting the Command key on Apple or the Windows key on PC. I can highlight all the tables. Then I could go to Shape Format, and I want to I can align them center, or I can align them distribute horizontally. So distribute vertically. So I can reorder objects. This is a little bit more advanced. So these are just some tools to kind of move the charts around. I could do a standardized, let's see, create a group, and I can do a standardized, maybe I want to do 20 by 15. So all those charts are sort of a standardized size. And then I'm gonna I'm going to ungroup them. So this is just some ways to kind of play around with altering the charts. And then I could, let's see. I can move them around. And I can also resize them, of course, by taking any these square points and I can move them around. So let's just organize them a little bit. Okay. So again, let me highlight these charts here. So I'm going to highlight these three charts. Shape format. And I want to actually, let me just there's also chart design where I can go in here and update the charts as well if I wanted to. So just to show there's a lot of different tools that you can do. All right, so let me go back to the dashboard here. And I want to just reformat this a little bit so I have a scale on this particular chart. Okay. So let me move these charts down a little bit so I have some room. So it's probably the easiest thing to do is to manually manipulate the charts to your liking. And let me just make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to expand this column to get this field a little bit bigger here. And I'm going to try to make the charts a little bit more uniform. So ideally, I like to keep them the same size. And create sort of these tiles here. Let's move this border down. Open. Now, if you have one chart here, like this chart's looking a little plain. So maybe I'll go back into the pivot table. And this was by, so let me go back and I can play around. Let's see. Do another pivot chart. And I can try to go back to design, change the chart type. Let's see. Maybe that won't work. You can't see it. I move this over so you can see. So different chart types. So if I didn't like that pie chart, I thought that was a little. I can play around with other types of charts to see what might actually look better. So here I'm going to make, this is a special type of combo chart. And I'm going to insert the title, chart elements, insert the title above. I'm going to call this a combo. All right, this over here. I'm going to copy this and bring this to the dashboard. And I'm going to get rid of this chart, which is kind of plain, and this chart's just a little bit more better, a little bit more developed. Expand that to size. Okay. So this has low end, high end, and these different categories. So it makes a little bit more stylized chart. So there you go. Now I have 6 charts. I have a couple bar charts, line chart, 2 tree maps, a combo chart. And now I'm ready to write my executive summary. So now in the executive summary, I want to start an introduction. So first let me check the memo, see if I answered all the questions. So here's these questions here. I should definitely have these questions answered inside of so let me copy these. Go back to the dashboard. This is going to be the makeup of my financial analysis. So my introduction is going to talk about, let me make this bigger. Oops, too big. Okay, so my introduction, I'll talk about, I was basically wanting to summarize what happened. So I'll say I was given instructions to review data related to ice cream sales by year for local stores, different towns, and I used a pivot tables to organize the data and then use the pivot tables to create a series of charts. Just a basic introduction of what I was asked to do and what I did. Then in the financial analysis area, I'm going to start looking at the data, and I'll start breaking out in the data which year has the highest revenues. So in the year data here, I could kind of use the charts to see, it looks like as far as, let's see, sum of costs, sum of revenue. So we have our revenue here. Units sold. So each of these so each of these has a different legend down here. We have our revenue is blue, our costs, our profits per year. So I can kind of use these charts to work with, or I could go straight to the data. So I could do in the data table here. So I have, so when it's looking at these, I'd have to use the pivot tables for all these because the pivot tables was going to create a sum. So if I'm looking for the flavor with the highest revenues, I can go to the pivot table, and down here I have flavors. So I could actually sort this from largest to smallest. So if I click on revenue, it sorted the, let me undo that. Let me click here. I can pull this drop down and I can do a sort, and I want to select on all, sort by revenue. So now if you see that, why didn't I want to sort by revenue, and I want to do descending. That's what I do. So now I have chocolate is the highest revenue flavor. So I could use these little tools here to answer these memo questions. Which year has the highest profits? So again, if I go to year, I can pull this little drop down, and there's a sort feature in here. I could go, we want to sort by profits and descend descending. So now I could see that year 2022 has the highest profits. So that's just a couple ways you could use this little feature here to do a quick sort to answer these questions that they're asking on the memo here, and then you can provide the answers here. But it should be written in a essay format, not just answering each of these questions. But basically, financial analysis is just sort of stating the facts of the data. Which store has the highest profits? Which store has the highest sales? Which ice cream brand overall has the highest profits and sales? So you're just analyzing the data that you collected in these pivot tables and charts, and you're just writing out, stating the obvious as to what the data is showing. Then in the recommendation, you want to recommend for the company, what should they do with the one goal in mind is typically to enhance profits. So you might want to say in the recommendation area, if you're looking at flavors and you sort the flavors by profit, gross profit, descending. So now you have a list of the most profitable flavors. So you may want to talk about which of the flavors bring in the most profits, and we should buy more or highlight more of those flavors. You could talk about the flavors that have the least amount of profits and sales, and maybe they need a better advertising campaign, better marketing, promotion campaign. In the data, we also have operating margins. So we could create a pivot table, go back to the pivot tables, and let me take it by brand. So we can actually go a step further. We weren't asked to do this. Well, we can create a new pivot table down here. And this is sort of critical thinking, like what else would make sense? So we would probably want to look at gross margins. And in this pivot table here, I want to bring up the just move this over. I want to bring up the field headers. I think okay, I want to bring up what's called the field list, and I didn't see it before because it's sort of on the other side of this. So I'll go over here, and I want to sort. I want to take off these, and I want to do operating margin here. But for the operating margin, I want to not do let me take off I could leave the gross profit, but I want to do, I'll do an average. And let me take off the gross profits. Let's take off the gross profits, and we'll add we'll put revenue. And I want to put this as a percentile. And I want to move revenues. I want to have revenues first. And so let's format this as a currency. Take away the change. Oop, going to move this over so you can see. I just formatted this and take away the change. And then I could create a pivot table chart, and I want to, this one should really be a combo chart. But the problem is, because when you have the dollars are so high and the profit margins are so low, this combo chart's not going to look, it's not going to look good. Okay. So So I'm just playing around what would be a better chart to look at. The scale is too off. So you know what? The scale just doesn't work too well because the numbers and percentages are a hard thing. So I'm going to take off the revenue and just have the percentages. And I'm just going to do a simple pie chart for that. So I can go to Pivot Table Analyze, Pivot Chart, and then I want to click on Design, and then change it to a pie chart. So now I have, and then let's put the percentages in there, and then we'll change the title, margin by brand. So we could have gross margin by brand, and then maybe let me take this table, bring it down here, and maybe we want to switch this to store, take away brand, so we can create another pivot table by profit margin by store. So pivot table, design, change this to pie chart. Maybe I'll make it a different type of pie chart. And then we want to put the stores in there and the percentages. So we have, that's not the percentages I want. So there's a couple of different ways to do this, but I'm noticing now that it's just doing the I'm not sure if I'm happy with any of these formats. But these are just two examples. Okay. So these charts aren't perfect. One thing I'm noticing is that these numbers, they're giving me a weird percentile base here. I'm going to delete these charts because I'm not getting the profit margins in there. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to copy and then paste special, just values and number formats here. And then I'm going to go to insert a pie chart. And again, I'm getting that same. I don't want the, these are not correct. I want these percentiles in there. Okay. I'm changing the chart type. That pivot, that pie chart was not exactly what I wanted. So I'm changing it to, let's try a column chart. All right, this actually works better. So I'll just make it into columns actually work better. So we have the profit margin by brand. I'll put this over here. And then again, if I highlight, copy this information, paste it, paste special, just the values and number formats. I can create another insert. I'm going to insert another column chart. Maybe I'll make it a 3D column chart. And I want to put in, make it a little more styled. And this is gross profit by store. Okay, so now I have two new charts. They didn't ask me to make these charts. I'm going to copy this. But it makes sense as far as doing the memo here. It makes sense to have some charts. And I'm going to expand this column here. I don't want to expand the charts though. All right. And expand this column here, just out of here. So I can place these new charts. Gross profit by store. And I have this by brands, copy this. So sometimes as you're analyzing the data, you might realize that you could use, so I'll make these a little bit more proportional. Okay. So I have gross profit by store, gross profit by brand. So as you're doing the executive summary, you might realize that there's a couple other charts you should include based on the data, because the data does give us operating profit margins, operating earnings, gross profit margins. So these are things that we can work on and enter these into the financial analysis as well. Okay, and then in the recommendation section, like I was telling, where I started talking about, this is where we want to recommend that, maybe this company could expand by new locations, expand their business to other locations, other towns. They can, maybe try different ice cream manufacturers. They have some ice cream manufacturers that do low-calorie ice cream. They have ice cream that's more gelato. So maybe any type of recommendations that would help this company to sell more product or have a better mix of product is what we want to do in the recommendation. So you're really using your business knowledge and your creativity and innovation to try to think about ways that the company can make more profits and sales. So again, the introduction is just stating the obvious, what you're asked to do and how you compile the data. And here I use pivot tables. Then I want to talk about what the data is showing, what is basically just describing the charts and the pivot tables I created and the data inside of it. Then recommendations where the company should move forward on how they should, business decisions they could do to make the company more profitable, to increase sales. So if I make this smaller, oops, not that small, you can see here that the financial analysis is going to take shape, and then basically I'm going to want to have maybe another chart here. Okay, so I just created another chart here, something else with profits, just to sort of create a uniformity to the dashboard. So you have let's just bring this chart up a little bit. Nope. Okay, just uniformity so that we have 9 charts, so that way it looks all filled out. So the dashboard would be complete with the 9 charts. You don't have to use these particular exact charts when you're working on this case file. I don't want you to duplicate what I do 100%. This is just really kind of giving you an overview of how to create the executive summary and dashboard. So then once you you've filled in and completed all of the recommendation and financial analysis, then you've completed this case. So I hope you found this video helpful and giving you an understanding of how to complete a case when you're looking at sales data and profit data. This is a grocery store chain and focusing just on ice cream. Okay, thank you and take care.